Welcome back to another episode of Scions of the Southland. We are back on another Tuesday, February 11th. There has been a lot of Georgia Tech sports in the offing. Mr. Jake Grant, how are you doing on this Tuesday night?
Doing fine, thanks. Got in the pool, played some intramural, man of many talents, I guess.
All right, so we have, like I said, we have a lot to talk about today. We're going to talk about some softball. Both basketball teams were in action. Both tennis teams were in action. Track and field was in College Station this weekend. Baseball starts next weekend. Yeah, it was a busy weekend on the flats, and it's another busy week to come.
Yeah, compound that with rain and snow. We had a ball of a time, but it's supposed to rain most of this week before it clears up Friday, which is in time for baseball and softball again. And I think Miami comes to town for tennis too, so plenty to see and do.
Yeah, I don't know. A good February snow, keeps the muscles fresh, keeps you on your toes.
Oh, for sure. Cade, he'll be back on the podcast someday. But Cade and I ran up to Sandy Springs to go actually see snow. Went to go to the Chicago-style hot dog place up there, but it was closed.
Oh, of course you did.
Well, I mean, it's very on brand, but shout out Gus's world-famous fried chicken on, I think it was Roswell Road, actually. That's where we went instead. Good stuff.
All right, to avoid him rambling about Chicago any longer, let's start today's podcast with, how about softball?
Sure. Lay it on.
All right. So, softball had a weird weekend. Their first game got pushed back to 10 a.m. because of inclement weather. I think that was a 10 a.m. start on Friday morning, and that was against UAB. UAB beat them, I want to say it was 9-2. And then they lost back-to-back games versus Washington on Saturday and Sunday morning. And then they were able to salvage a victory versus Ohio in the late game on Sunday. It's a bit of a mixed bag. I think we were very positive about where this season could go. And early on, and I know both of us were talking about this offline intermittently while the games were going on, it was like we saw some regression at places we really didn't expect to see it from this team.
Yeah, I want to lead with a couple comments before we dive more into that, because I do have some thoughts on that. But in general, I don't know. We were high on this team. They only played 4 games instead of the 5, so I think we said 3-2 would be, and they went 1-3. So again, not a winning record, but you're inviting what is essentially the best college team on the planet plus the rest of the gang into Atlanta for a weekend, and 2 of your games are against that best team. Like, you're not going to, not that you're not setting yourself up for success there though, but it's not like last year when they went to Jacksonville and dropped 2 games to Providence. That's
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's still early. I'm not going to start sounding alarms, but they gave us plenty to talk about, I think.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in terms of just how the weekend played out, it was a dynamic. It forced them to adapt on the fly in terms of UAB was supposed to be Thursday, then it was Friday, and Friday morning when they started playing, it was snowing. And then it was cold all weekend, which I guess isn't really great. I predicted low scoring games all around once I saw that it was going to be 38 degrees for all day Friday and Saturday. But I don't know. I guess we didn't really see that either in the first 2 games. UAB in the first Washington game.
Yeah, and let's see, UAB scored 9, and then Washington scored 11 in the second game. So
yeah,
the weather wasn't really an issue. It might, in terms of scheduling, maybe we sometimes talk about a body clock game when teams have to play games at odd times. Like there was that Stanford traveling to Northwestern series a couple years ago where Stanford players came, they didn't come out ready to compete because their clocks were still on Pacific time. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know how much of an effect that has when you're still in the same time zone. You're just playing a game at 10 a.m., but I feel like it's still there's something to be said for that.
Yeah. Again, I don't know how much that played into it. I will say it was definitely something else to be sitting at class at 10 in the morning and streaming a game that's happening, a mile away at Mewborn. But in terms of like actually diving into that first game, I can say more about the second because I actually got to see all that game, but we'll get there in a minute. But the UAB game kind of was like a tale of two games, if that makes sense. It was like the close 1-1, 2-1, 2-2 first couple innings, and then just the end where it kind of got out of hand. But if we're talking pros, cons, pluses, minuses, has to be at the top of the list in terms of not pleasant surprises, but man, she in the first inning, she ended the top of the first, throwing out a would-be base stealer at second, and then promptly leads off the inning, the bottom of the inning, with a home run on the second pitch she sees in college. That is, I mean, hype trains are one thing, but like she is as advertised, it seems.
Mm-hmm. I was very impressed. She, especially against Washington, I didn't feel like she looked phased at all.
No.
It's your first couple of collegiate games. You're facing the number one team in the nation, and she just was absolutely steel faced. Handled herself really well. I don't think she made a mistake. I think her pitchers let her down a couple of times, but there were no defensive mistakes on her part, and she hit. I want to say she hit pretty well over the course of the weekend too, which was one of the bright spots over the course of the weekend on that side.
Yeah, and allowing us to kind of pivot away from the UAB game and to the Washington first game specifically because I have my notes open here. Also, shout out EFIS League for the notebook scorecard paper,
Not
if that makes sense.
Not a sponsor.
Yeah, no sponsor. No sponsor. If they want to sponsor us, by all means, call Ben. But no, great handy resource because I do like to keep score of games and never really did it for softball because they didn't have the scorecards that they hand out, and I would always lose baseball ones. But anyways, fact of the matter is, I have this handy resource in front of me, and talking about Emma Koff not being phased against a great Washington team. In her 3 at-bats in the first game, she had a single, and then she stole second. In the third, she grounded out. In the fourth, she hit a double, which I believe might have plated one. No, I don't know. I think she was on second. I don't know if that scored a run. And then in the seventh, she had a single and another stolen base, and then came around to score. So again, not bad. It was pretty cold, so my RBI tracking was not great because I was trying to write minimal things. So I don't know if she had an RBI, but leading off the season with a home run, solid contact later in the game against UAB, and then 3 for 4 against the best college team on the planet. That is a good start.
And you can, and I mean, you can say sample size or whatever, but and I know that people like us, sort of statistically inclined, might go and sound that alarm, but at the same time, you got to appreciate starting with a bang.
Yeah, she made herself known. Also, in that, just looking over the scorecard, there's probably 2 other takeaways. Lily Hooper, 2 triples, got thrown out at the plate, trying for an in the Parker in the second inning. But no, 2 triples were very solid. And then if you look at the 4th inning, Tech was a swing away from not tying Washington, but taking the lead, which would have been 7-6, 6-6 if they would have tied. So, yeah, 11-6 is not a small margin, but it's not like Tech was fully out of the game either. It's just, they're not the number one team in the country. They're probably not top 25 material either, but they hung around, especially in that second game when it was
the second
final
game,
score 2-1, right?
Mm-hmm. That I watched, I want to say, most of the second game, and I came away very impressed with transfer from, I want to say, UT Martin, Lexi Ray, who was on the mound for most of that game, for facing what looks like a very daunting Washington lineup. She handled herself pretty well, and I mean, she let in, the last time I checked, I wanted to say, like, it might have been 7-8 hits, but at the same time, there were only 2 runs scored, and they came, if I remember correctly, in the same inning, and she was able to get the last 2 outs of that inning on a double play to end it and end the threat of more runs coming in. So, yeah, to end my word vomit here, Lexi Ray, definitely impressed with her performance in that game.
Yeah, I think she was one of the incoming players that we kind of highlighted coming into last weekend when we last did the podcast. So not saying it's unsurprising or anything, but it's good to see her kind of filling those shoes. I don't think she pitched the first game against Washington. That was split between Pinholster and Bruce. But no,
she was in the first game versus UAB, and that, I will say, was a bit of a disappointment.
She came into a not very clean inning, though. So
yeah, she came into a not clean inning, and I think the UAB game, a lot of that was just a wash. Not solid defensively in the infield, especially. It was, the whole thing was a wash.
I will say one of those. I'll throw UAB out with the bathwater for the most part, but the defensive middle infield, not struggles, but just inconsistency, kind of carried over into the nightcap on Friday too. That was one thing I wanted to note.
Nightcap on
Zeitler on Friday.
Okay,
but Zeitler and Roper had made a really solid pairing up the middle last year, and I think maybe they were a step off on Friday, but it's definitely something I feel like I'll be keeping an eye on, because that is going to have to tighten up if we want to win the close games, in games where if you can control something and do it well, then you got to get it done.
And I think especially Washington, in that second game, where I said, I mean, they got 9 hits, but none of them were particularly towering. Like, they weren't really hitting for power. They were just getting balls into the infield, or they were just scorching past infielders. In most of those cases, it was very, very scientific, very small ball. It was kind of an interesting approach.
But the question is, were they bunting for power?
They did bunt a couple times. I want to say a leadoff hitter in one of the innings bunted for a hit.
Okay.
So it happened.
One thing I will say about softball, for those of our listeners who aren't as inclined to the sport, before we kind of move on to other things, but the bunt is interesting because you're playing on that smaller field, and it's the same reason you see like the lefty slap hitter, the ones who take the stride from the back of the box to try and kind of like run at the ball, just put it in play and get down to first. So bunting, not that it's more effective than baseball, or honestly, it's probably a little bit less frequent because you got the slap hitters, but it's definitely an interesting wrinkle. And I don't know, based on what I saw from our pitchers and Emma Koff, I think they're pretty capable to handle that, especially behind the plate. So I don't know, if we can not just keep the ball in the infield and not make the mistakes up the middle, but make sure we're capitalizing on, the hits that aren't towering, then, that's a good defensive start, I'd say.
Yeah. I'd be happy with that. Keep everything in front of you, just like every other sport.
Mm-hmm. And I guess, they got they notched the first win. it's not a great weekend, but it's kind of like one of those like on to Iowa, on to Nebraska. Let's clean up in the Big Ten ACC challenge.
All right, sounds good. Let's see. Where do you want to go next?
I think we can just do a quick hitter because this shouldn't take us too long.
Go
before
for
we
it.
get into things we start rambling on. But track and field in College Station, not not an overwhelming number of storylines to kind of dive into here. But the one that's definitely the most prominent is Nicole Fegans breaking her own school record for the second time in a month, which had not previously been broken in 24 years in the mile indoors in College Station, and then the two distance medley relay. Yeah, that's what DMR. Both very strong showings after having done well in Nashville a couple weeks earlier, and I think that speaks to Tech's strengths. Our women's cross country team the last 2 years has been on the ups. Our men's team has looked solid too, so it's no surprise that the distance medley is somewhere we've seen a lot of strength. Track and field, we get a lot from pole vaulting, hurdles, things like that. But also, it helps if you can bring in the guys and gals from the fall into the spring and kind of have them contribute.
Mm-hmm. And this was actually broadcast on ESPN Plus, or at least one day of it was. So I got to catch. It was like set A of the 4x400, which Tech's men's relay won. And it was interesting. I didn't expect to see a track meet on streaming online, and did that for the first time.
Yeah,
and cross that off on the list.
They get the home swim meets on ACC Network Extra too, which there is one this weekend. So if you want to watch random non-rev sports in the morning, call swimming. No, I don't know. I know it's weird how track like splits up their athletes and sends them to different places, and you don't send a full team, and so like it's not often you get to like walk away from a track meet and go like Georgia Tech as a team got X place overall, and we did get second in College Station, so there's a trophy. Good job. If there's not, just put a big number 2 on a piece of paper and stick it on your like bulletin board.
All right, so let's see. Where do we go next? Let's talk about women's basketball, who are back in business after last week.
Yep. I looking at these two teams. Yeah, you need to beat Wake, but boy, do you need to beat Pitt. That would not have been good if they lost that one.
Yeah, that would not have been good at all. So just a quick recap. So they faced Wake Forest first, and that was a 62-52 win to break. Actually, I think they played Pitt first. Ooh,
yeah,
my tabs are in the wrong order. So they played Pitt first. My bad. So that was a 77-48 victory. Pitt is also 1-10 in conference. So take away from that what you will. I will say I am looking at the game flow chart here on ESPN, and it was close for a bit, and then probably at the middle part of the second quarter, Tech pulls away and stays away from Pitt. So yeah, like you said, you gotta beat the basement teams in the conference here.
And the fact that they beat the brakes off of them is good too. 3-point shooting percentage was up. Free throw shooting percentage was up. Out turnovered by a lot, and then rebounding, dominating the glass. That is how Tech has kind of lived and died in the can we make our free throws and can we make our 3-pointers? And if you add those well and put in what Tech has always done, and that is play stifling defense and kind of get the glass under hands. it's a win, and I'm not gonna nitpick winning by 30 after having lost 4 or 5 straight.
And then to just cap off that, so the second game again was versus Wake Forest. That was a 62-52 victory. That game got weirdly tense over the last minute and probably like the last, I want to say like 2 or 3 minutes. Wake cut it to 4, and then Tech pulled away with free throws. That one was also pretty close up until the same point in the middle part of the second quarter. Looking at the game flow chart here,
I did not get to watch this game. Sunday was a busy day for me, but I don't know. Just looking at the numbers, kind of the same vibe. Wake Forest did not play very diligent defense, like at all. Like their fouls, lots of fouls up and down the board. Tech went to the line a significant amount of times more than the Demon Deacons. And, if you're going to be a defensive team, you got to at least be, clean with it. You can't be putting yourself in situations that are going to, backfire, give the other team an advantage. And, Georgia Tech, for their part, shot north of 75% from the free throw line, which is better than they've done in a lot of games this season. So, take advantage of something like that when you're given the free opportunity.
And just to add to that, it wasn't just a foul shooting thing for Wake either. If you look at the game flow chart, Wake does not have a single point between 4:12 in the second quarter and 3:29 in the third. So they go a full quarter, just about a full quarter and a little more without a point. Whereas Tech puts up, let me check here, they put up 12. So
that's a different game right there.
That's not how you win a basketball game.
Ain't that the truth?
So,
well, again, 2 wins are 2 wins.
Yeah, not going to pick a lot of nits, although I will say that Wake was a better opponent, and this team also, Wake did also beat Tech earlier in the season. So, getting him back later in the year at home means something. I'm pretty happy with that.
A little bit of growth. That's all we can ask for.
Yeah, and just an update on the ACC standings. Tech is now, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th. 7th in the ACC. 4.5 games back of NC State, who is on a stupid 11-1 in conference, 22-1 overall tear this season.
Can we please not let them win the conference? I like them being terrible at winning ACC titles. Like, that brings me joy.
Yeah, but yeah. Speaking of which, we play them on Sunday. So
Sunday on the road, I think, right?
Yes, that one is in Raleigh. So that's going to be an interesting one. That's all I'll say on that one. There is a game in between that. We'll go over that in the weekend preview at the end of the show. But women's basketball will be at Virginia Tech on Thursday as well. So 2 more games this week, Thursday and Sunday. 2 very different opponents, I will say.
Yep.
So whereas Virginia Tech is 4th, so maybe not so different. But the fact remains, not really comparable to 22-1.
Yeah, Tech can hang with them. I will say I misread the men's basketball against Louisville tomorrow as being women's basketball versus Louisville on Thursday, and kind of had a mini heart attack because Louisville's a strong team too. But I don't know. I think Tech can play. So
that is next Thursday.
Great. Yeah, this will be a tough stretch. We'll see if they can get one of the 3 of these. That would be good. 2 would be incredible. I'm not gonna.
Oh boy, rough stretch. Now
bold
that I
enough.
have the schedule pulled up here, does not begin to describe it. Let's say 3 of their final 5 opponents are ranked in the top 15. So that's at number 4 NC State this Sunday, at number 9 or versus number 9 Louisville next Thursday, and then next Sunday at versus number 14 Florida State. Out of those teams, they've already beat Florida State, so that one is a little bit tighter than Florida State's 14 rank might lead you to believe, but yeah, 3 of 5 versus ranked teams. Not great for a team that's looking to get back onto the bubble, or it doesn't set up great, at least.
Yeah, I would agree. But if you can do some damage there, then you play yourself back into the tournament. So,
Yeah, you play yourself back into the tournament with that, and even if you can't, let's say you can't take those games, or you look maybe semi-competitive, you take some games in the ACC tournament, you end up with a high WNIT seed, or at least a high-ish WNIT seed, or maybe just sneak in as the last 4 into the tournament.
Yeah.
It's possible.
I don't know. It would be disappointing not to make the tournament after the start to the year, but I've never won. Don't need tournament. Here, let me compose my thoughts. Going to any postseason is still good because you can still win a title,
Mm-hmm.
So
the volleyball fan has spoken.
Yeah, we don't. It's not their turn. We'll talk about them in the fall. But no, I guess we kind of alluded to men's basketball. Do you want to talk about the Pitt game or no?
Sure, let's roll right into that. So, men's basketball went to Pittsburgh and let the game slip away in a very familiar turn of events yet again. Just looking at our advanced box score here, Tech actually did edge Pittsburgh in a couple of things. Points per shot, 2-point percentage, 3-point percentage. Where we see probably your big deficiency is turnovers. Want to guess how many Georgia Tech had?
7. I know that's not right.
You know that's an awful guess. It was 22.
Yeah, that's not great, Chief.
Just for point of comparison, Tech had 22 made field goals in this game.
Yeah, that's not great.
Yeah, so again, comparison, Pitt had 8. That's probably where the majority of your extra possessions and chance of winning comes from for Pitt. Pitt in this one, by our model, had a 65% post-game win probability. ESPN had them with about 68 the entire game. So, yeah, you don't have 22 turnovers. You cut that number in half, and you drastically increase your odds of winning this game.
Well, I mean, even 11 is not a small number.
Great. 11 is not great, but it's better than 22 is my point.
That is accurate. Also, I like how you slipped in by our model because it's the patented Akshay Ishwaran from the Rumble Seat Analytics staff,
It is, we don't have a cool name for it. It's also very simplistic and probably not statistically sound, but, it's math and advanced stats are fun. So we're rolling with it.
From the Rumble Stats.
Please don't make that a thing. We can do better.
We can. We'll think about that. If anybody out there has any suggestions,
we'll work on it. But back to the week in men's basketball. I feel like the last couple of weeks we've definitely spun our wheels and circle talked our way around this team. It's the turnovers, it's the free throw shooting, and yet again they have doomed what was a fairly okay shooting performance otherwise, and turned it into another disappointing loss, especially to a team like Pitt, who, I mean, we don't think of Pitt as necessarily creme de la creme or even mid-tier in most years in ACC basketball, at least. I can't speak for previous Big East basketballness.
Yeah, I gotcha. And I don't know. I feel like, and this kind of is a more general statement, when it comes to things like basketball and football, where there's a lot of people out there that are fans with lots of opinions, I find myself not struggling to make a judgment, but not wanting to go against the grain or not wanting to not be positive. It's the old rec club football basketball chair in me. Like you want to hype up this team, you want to believe they're going to be the team that should appeal the tournament and should, be the best team Pastner has had. But it's hard because they're making the same mistakes they made last year and the year before that. And some of that's the team, some of that's coaching. It's frustrating to watch an away game up at Pittsburgh like you did Saturday and go, that looks exactly like the Clemson road loss in 2017 or the Wake Forest road loss in 2018. It's the same narrative every time. Like, it's not circle talking if it's the same thing and things just don't
And
change.
just to give your argument here. Sorry, I'll let you finish first.
No, I'm done. I was just gonna exasperatedly say something along the lines of, like, I'd take just anything different.
Yeah. So just to give your argument some more credence here. So let's look at Pitt on one hand, and then let's also take a look at a game that Tech won handily in the Virginia Tech game last week. So Virginia Tech has 7. I don't know. That's offensive rebounds. I'm looking at. All right, Georgia Tech turnovers versus Virginia Tech 10. Virginia Tech had 8. Georgia Tech's win percentage in win expectancy in this game was 87.7%. And I will admit, you have to also add in the confounding factor of Virginia Tech not being able to hit a 3-point shot the entire night. Like that, not being able to score on your most valued or your most valued point shot is not helping you out. But
correct.
Even I bring this up to make 2 points. Number one, fewer turnovers, probably going to win the game. This was half. It was less than half of the number of turnovers that Tech had in the Pitt game, and they won this game pretty handily. And even if Virginia Tech could make 3-point shots, they probably still would have won this game. 2, they still had 10 turnovers in a game that they won. This is not a productive situation. This is a problem that consistently is not going away. Even when the team is doing well, they're still giving up poor turnovers. And like you said, part of it is the team, part of it is the coaching. It feels at this point we've beat the horse to death and turned it into glue.
Yeah. And I thought you were done. Sorry for cutting in, but I've gotten so used to watching this team commit 20 turnovers. And yes, I watch other teams play college basketball, but not with enough regularity that I do at Georgia Tech, that I have gone and normalized the way that they play this basketball, right? And you go in and you go like, what?
Trauma?
No, I guess we can go 5 stages of grief or whatever here, but I've hit acceptance. Like, I go and I'm like, oh yeah, 20 turnovers. Okay. Like, that's not something you should be able to justify to yourself as a normal way that good teams play basketball. You have to protect the ball. That is the number one thing you do. You can't give other teams free possessions, free shots, free opportunities, because then you're just doing yourself a disservice,
Yeah. I don't know what more there is to say about men's basketball. They do play Louisville, number 4 Louisville. I think that's what I saw. Yes, number 5 Louisville on ACC Network tomorrow. I will say, they did put up a very good fight against Louisville in late January. So I'm interested to see if that has an effect, if the quality of an opponent has an effect in this matchup tomorrow.
Yeah. I don't know. They not that they play up to or down to their opponents in the way that certain other teams definitely play up to or down to their opponents, but I don't know. Like these guys get hyped to play a big game, and I think that's just the natural competitors in them because they are a team of guys who want to go out there and play and win and shoot the ball and celebrate. Like I don't know. One of my favorite Georgia Tech sports memories is watching Jose Alvarado step over. God, who was that from
It's a
UNC?
UNC guy, right? There's a
Yeah,
lottery
it was a
pick, I'm
whole
pretty
big.
sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say Nasir Little, but it definitely wasn't him because I would have remembered that because of the whole Nasir Little's definitely going to come to Tech thing that definitely did not
Yeah.
happen. But we don't need to get into that. It was. Oh, I don't think he was a lottery pick. I think he was one of their. You know how UNC has those seniors that they stay forever and become like cult heroes and whatnot.
Cult heroes or cult villains. It might have been
Yeah,
Grayson
yeah.
Allen.
No, it wasn't Grayson Allen because it was UNC. I remember
Hold on,
Theo
hold on.
Pinion.
I'm looking it up. Just keep
But no,
talking.
like
I'll find it. I'll find it.
I'll vamp on that. Point is, these guys want to play and they want to win and they get excited to play and it's fun to watch them when they're doing well. But the fact that they make the same mistakes isn't like it's not right for us to just explain it away and say like, oh, that's how they play. Like we are here to break down this team and say what they do well and what they don't do well. And one of those things is protecting the ball, taking advantage of that basic tenet of basketball. And part of that's we can talk about getting to the free throw line or not fouling as much or whatever. But I think that's protecting your possessions is vital.
Just
And
a real time follow up here. It was Joel Berry, and he was not
mm,
happy about that. He was very upset with
no,
that.
that was a whole big national thing, right? There's sports writers talking about how disrespectful he was and stuff like that.
It wasn't okay. It was disrespectful, but also it was funny, and that's fun. That's the fun in sports. Just live a little, y'all.
Hey, if it dumps a little gas on the fire, if it helps them play better, I'll take it. I don't know. As long as we're not out there decking guys or Grayson Allening guys or
Chick
whatever that
graining.
dude. Oh, that's mean. That's a low blow. But like the Wisconsin guy who's like fans and teammates have turned against him or whatever, that's whack. Like don't do that. But I don't know. Play the game.
All right, before we instead of getting into a debate about sports ethics and on-field behavior, let's move on. Let's move on to more positive news. Women's tennis and men's tennis both did honestly pretty impressively this weekend. I was looking back at the results from Yellow Jacket Roundup earlier this week. I was and especially hearing about the upset from the women, I was very impressed.
Oh yeah, definitely. One and two for the women was exactly is a successful weekend, right? You go and you have 3 shots against every other opponent being in like the top 20, right? And we're at what, 22? That is to get a top quadrant one, for lack of a better term, for our basketball and baseball fans out there, to get a quadrant one victory, neutral site against a team that we have shown that we can beat in the past with other Georgia Tech women's tennis teams. Boom, send it. We played competitively against Stanford, almost won that doubles point, and then even better, against number 9 Florida State, who I'm pretty sure we see. Who I don't know if it's at home or on the road, but we definitely see them again. I don't know. We'll get a lot of hacks at good tennis in the ACC, so not gonna complain about 1 and 2.
Yeah, and just so that it's clear, the upset win was over number 13 Ohio State. I don't think I said that out loud, but there it is. Again, all
Yeah.
good things, all very good things. Pivoting to the men now, though, they played equivalent or lesser competition, but they still impressed. Other than for dropping the doubles point versus State, I think that was a bit of a frustration.
Oh, it was okay. So I was there because that was before before the Washington game. Yes, that was before the Washington game on Friday night. And doubles point against Georgia State. I don't know what it is about Georgia State, and it's honestly, after watching the doubles tennis point, I kind of, and a big chunk of singles, I kind of understand the football argument of why you don't want to play your little brother if you don't have to, because those guys were, I don't want to call them disrespectful per se,
They
but
came to play.
they were obnoxious. It was screaming after any point. It was I don't know. Tennis
Okay,
is
are we really going to
pretty
break into a discussion on on-field ethics? I just said we were pivoting away from that. Come on now.
I mean, I know. I was like, I don't know. I've never been angry at a tennis match before.
But that's a good thing to be, I feel like. I mean, again, the merits or lack thereof of playing an inner city rival that's in a lower division talent level of you, like the merits of that notwithstanding, like it's good to be into a tennis match like that. I think for some people that aren't so, I don't know, like individual sport inclined, like tennis is a weird sport to get into. Like to be a diehard fan of tennis, it's strange. So to be excited, to be engaged in a match, it's a good thing.
I mean, I played for years growing up, and like I don't know. I never got into watching other people play tennis until I came to college tennis and like, being down here. But I don't know. Whenever I go to a match, I'm always invested in how our guys are doing. If that makes sense, like it's weird to like make that pivot from yes, I'm supporting my team to like when you're at a football game, you're just like you want to knock their teeth in, or if you're at a basketball game, baseball game.
It's a weird.
Whatever.
I see what you're saying. It's a weird context switch.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. Yeah. So, no, we're saying the same thing in different ways. Yeah. I think.
Yeah, we're on the same wavelength. And then, like you said, they came back and won 4 straight singles. They beat Auburn pretty solidly. They swept the Citadel 7-0. Like that is a good weekend. 3 wins. Bank 'em. Young team growth. Stamp all the usual, qualifiers on it.
Yeah, I had nothing else to add there. I was, like I said, pretty impressed with the weekend. Like I think overall it was a mixed bag for Georgia Tech sports overall, but the good parts were very good.
Yes. Again, in the policy of not nitpicking wins, women's basketball's on track. Women's tennis got another marquee top 15 win. Men's tennis took care of business. These are good things. Softball only lost 2-1 to the best team in the country. Boom. Signed, sealed, delivered.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So let's see. We have our baseball preview to get to. Is there anything else in the wide world of Georgia Tech sports that you want to mention before we dive into baseball?
Other than, are we going to save the schedule preview for last?
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll take care of that last.
All right, cool. Other than that, I'm good. Let's talk baseball.
Yeah, the only other note that I had is that hockey was at the SEC Hockey Conference tournament this weekend.
Yeah. I don't want to talk about that one.
I'm just saying that they were there. I saw that they were there. I really was hoping that you would be able to comment further.
I mean, I can talk about it, but
short version.
4-1 loss to UGA with 2 empty net goals is not a fun topic. So we'll just say that they're looking to get a regional berth. Hopefully, they're playing in Florida in a couple weeks. Man, I don't know. I hate losing to UGA and everything. Ice hockey is a particularly passionate sport of mine. It's fine. Whatever. We'll get them next time.
Oh boy, said like a true Midwestern dad at talking to his son after a losing baseball game. All right, let's see. So baseball season starts on Friday. So it's the Atlanta Challenge. Tech will face St. Peter's, Cincinnati, and St. John's on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, respectively. Spring has sprung, like you were saying on Twitter and in a couple of your articles this week. So we have each prepared two high-level questions about this baseball season. So we're gonna dive in. We've been previewing baseball a lot over the last 2 weeks on From the Rumble Seat. So if you want more, I don't know, more wide-ranging coverage, you can head there. But for now, let's stick to our they're high level, but they're still pretty focused questions. So, Mr. Grant, do you want to start us off here?
Sure. All right. I think this is probably the big one's mine. The turnover in the pitching coach and the staff on that side. Has the pitching talent developed as fast as the pitching culture has improved?
I think this one is a little tough, right? Because you're comparing the yardstick of last season's pitching talent, where you had Amos Willingham putting in a lot of quality innings. You had Connor Thomas being the ace of the rotation. Davion Curry is putting together solid starts. Brant Herter played most of the season and then was injured. It's a weird point of comparison when you haven't really seen what this year's guys are going to look like. But I will say, given Boral's emphasis on technology, emphasis on very physiological, very almost scientific approaches to pitching, it seems like there have been a lot of improvements.
Yeah, based on the numbers he puts out, and man, I would love to see their proprietary stuff, but on the numbers he puts out across the board, even with pitches they've added in the last year, and new freshmen, all these numbers are staggeringly better. Like looking at John Hughes or Court Rodig. I think Court Rodig is going to take a big step forward this year personally, but the on paper they have. I think it's just a matter of what does that translate? How fast does it kind of adapt to like the live baseball?
Mm-hmm. And it's not just. I think a lot of the numbers that we've been seeing have been, they've been more like, okay, he's improved his fastball speed. He's improved. This guy changed his arm slot. This guy, I'm actually looking at a couple of his tweets now. Like the arm slot has changed. The arm angle has changed. The release angle of the ball has changed. These are all good stats, right? Like they really get you into the nitty gritty, like physical in like the science sense of the word, physical angles of pitching. But what does this translate to in terms of control? What does this translate to in terms of pitch sequencing? Those are the things that I think are going to be most important, especially with what looks to be a very young starting rotation this season. And then at the same time, you're throwing a lot of youth right into the fire in the bullpen as well.
Yeah, and a lot of that's going to translates to the non-measurable stuff. The who's going to be a head case if there gets to be a runner on second with no outs after a ball gets thrown over the first baseman's head. That's not something you can put a number on. It's just a matter of, okay, I've been here. I trust my stuff. I can strike out the next guy, get the other guy to hit into a ground out, and then fly out. Those are intangibles that only translate once you have that game experience, right?
Yeah, and I think this first series against opponents that Tech should dispatch pretty, without much incident, will be a good tune-up, a good test of this talent and of Boral's approach to a certain extent. Like, you're still facing college hitting, the quality of which, this weekend is a little murky, given that the teams like St. Peter's only won 5 games last season. but it's still live baseball. You're still playing live games. It's no longer practice. It's no longer pitching sessions in the bullpen under the stadium. These are live games with opponents that have scouted you very, very rigorously. Let's see what you got. Let's see what this approach has brought.
Yeah, and they've had all season to have these games circled, right? For St. Peter's, this is going to be their World Series, their Super Bowl, their March Madness. This is their shot, right? So that's why they play the games. You know, if it was as easy as running down the roster and being yes, no, then sports wouldn't exist. So we kind of it's a wait and see game at this point, honestly, in my opinion. And fortunately, we are 60 hours from seeing at this point.
Yeah. So I guess the answer to this question is wait until Friday to find out. It's
very satisfying answer.
Like,
you know.
But at the same time, like that's just the way the cookie crumbles here. Like you don't know. It's the same thing in the majors, right? You don't know how good a prospect is until they step on a major league field at like 3 or 4 years after they're drafted, and then get their 40 at bats to stabilize their numbers. It's just you need to give it time. You need to see their talent in action.
And tangentially, we'll get at least a spring look at Joey Bart trying to do that this year, since he'll be in big league camp.
Yeah, hopefully he makes the Giants roster. I know Buster Posey is still there and he's still healthy, but everyone needs a backup catcher.
Gotta give him time to develop too. So, again, and that kind of segues nicely into our. I didn't even think of that, but there you go.
All right, so like you said, that sets up our second question: who is the replacement for Kyle McCann? That is catcher Kyle McCann to really ruin the transition there.
Yeah, who was also the replacement for catcher Joey Bart the year before.
And also, both of them, are massive power hitters. So, who are we thinking? You look up and down this roster, who stands out to you as being that guy, being in the same mold?
It just kind of hit me. I think that might actually be two questions. It's who's going to replace Kyle McCann behind the dish, and who's going to replace Kyle McCann at the plate. Is that a fair way to...
No, I totally think that's fair. And I think that's how I analyzed it when I was talking about the... I want to say it was one of the previews, too.
Yeah. And in terms of... I think the easier question is behind the dish. And I think the answer... If everything goes well, we're going to be seeing Jake Holland back there. I think if Turley or Taylor becomes long-term starter this year, either they just come out kind of out of nowhere, because neither was really that spunky last year. But Jake Holland he comes highly touted. He's my pick behind the dish. I don't know what his power numbers look like off the top of my head.
I got a couple numbers here from Perfect Game. 97th percentile in the 2020 class, or the 2019 class in exit velo. Well, that's a hitting stat, but let's see if I can find a catching stat.
I mean, if you want to back him up as saying he's going to be somebody who's going to mash, then by all means, answer both questions at once.
Yeah, so that's actually what I was going to roll right into that. What I wrote in our catcher preview is Tech should consider DHing Holland because he has the bat. I can't necessarily speak for his prowess behind the plate, but maybe you put someone that is more defensively proficient, or at least a proven commodity behind the plate, like Turley or Jamie Taylor, and then you DH Holland so that you get at least for the first couple of games, so that you get an idea of what both of them have to offer against regular starts and regular college pitching, and then maybe you make a move.
Yeah, and that logic holds, but they only played in a combined 22 games and started a combined 3 last year. So the idea that they have a lot of experience, not saying that you're wrong or it's not true, but you can make more experience, but not saying it's Holland's job to lose either, but I'd like them to give him a shot. If we can ride with Holland back there for 3 years, like Joey Bart called his own games. That's not something you see at the college level very much. That putting Holland in now, and if he can adapt quickly, is going to pay dividends, not just this year, at the end of the year, because everybody grows during the year, but it's going to pay dividends, next year and the year after that, when, the catcher kind of falls into that captain role, that model, the guy who keeps the pitchers in check.
Yeah. And just so that we come back to the discussion about Holland's bat, like I think you've explained his like the case for him being catcher pretty well, but like to pivot over to the McCann at the plate side, who's going to replace that? Holland's power numbers are pretty ridiculous, at least from perfect game. So he was like I said, 97th percentile in the 2019 class in exit velo, 97th percentile in max barrel speed, 98th percentile in power generation at the point of contact, or what perfect game calls impact momentum, 94th percentile in bat acceleration. These are very, very good numbers. He can turn on a pitch and let it fly. Now, this comes with a caveat that a lot of this is versus high school pitching. Perfect game is a little different because that's high level high school pitchers, probably like the quadruple A for college, if you sort of get my mixing of metaphors there. But
yeah,
I think this is a good foundation. This is definitely a good foundation to build off of. And if anything, like I said, you need to have him in the lineup because Turley and Taylor do not have similar power numbers, at least not ones that I can find.
Yeah, I get you on that. I don't know. I guess we could dive more into Reed and other freshmen and their power numbers. I don't think you're going to be seeing Waddell, Goldberg, a lot of the returners kind of dialing that up. But I think we're seeing Holland behind the dish come ACC tournament, hopefully postseason. Knock on wood. I think it'll have been a successful transition.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm good with Holland behind the plate. I want to see that defense. I want if he gets a run out this weekend, totally okay with that. But I need to see with mine eyes how he commands the takes control behind the plate, and is he able to throw out runners? Is he able to frame pitches effectively? Obviously, that's a little less of a factor at the college level, I would say. But I want to see that defensive talent with my eyes in order to say, yes, this is the guy that should be behind the dish for 3+ years.
Yeah, I gotcha. Point is, again, I feel weird saying this for the second question in a row, but it's not something we're going to find until the games are played, right? So, so we can go back and forth and circle talk, agreeing on that all we want, but part of
it is what it is.
Honestly,
it is what it is.
I think for a lot of them, the answer is just going to be play the games. But you can talk about who's going to replace Will Height in center or Tristan at first, and it's going to come down to what you hope, what you think, and actual answer.
I feel
all happen.
And I know. I think, I feel, and I know. Our therapy words, Jake.
Isn't that what sports are for? But yeah,
bad version of therapy. Would not use sports as therapy personally. Let's move on. Yeah. So, what do you have cooking for us next?
I think this is an underrated kind of aspect of what they've been talking up in the lead up to the season. What will the speed on the bases, like more sends / small ball, look like? When in the past, what we've seen is more like of the big bats, of the slugging, but also a lot of bunting. I know that's not, at least in the From the Rumble seat, Slack, the hashtag bunt for power movement is not
Well
exactly the most
received.
popular. No, but if the team needs to play small ball, I don't know. I've just never seen them do that. Like, what do you think that's going to look like?
All right, so I have some of the returners stats pulled up here. When we're talking about small ball, I want to extrapolate that a little bit to more scientific hitting or professional hitting. I think, as more major leaguers will call it, your Nick Markakis types that generate hits they generate hits like a machine.
Yeah.
For Tech, you're looking at Jackson Webb and Luke Waddell, who did that for the vast majority of the season. Luke Waddell obviously slashing 322, 436, and 416 last season, and Andrew writes here he was third on the team in batting average, and then was very patient at the plate, only striking out 22 times over 233 plate appearances. Like, when you have guys like that, you are bound to generate hits. I think Webb and Waddell were right around in the middle of the lineup. I want to say they were either 2 and 3 or 5 and 6, and they were able to routinely get on base and routinely at least threaten for stealing bases. I want to say Waddell had 7, and Webb had 6 or 7 as well. So you put those guys on base, if they hit at the same rate, they're your speed guys. They're the guys that you're looking at to say, okay, they've gotten on base. How do they optimize their chances of scoring from here, especially when you may not have as much power in the lineup this year? These guys are going to have to step up a little bit more and generate more offense in other ways as well.
Yeah. And yeah, green lighting guys on the base paths will get them to second and third. Well, if they can steal third, get them around the infield more. I know we stranded a lot of runners last year, but that's also by virtue of putting a lot of people on base. And if they can keep that high on base percentage, walks, hit by pitches, hits that stay in the park, like that, I think the biggest difference we're going to see is there's not going to be a Kyle McCann, boom, big home run power. Tristan English, boom, big deep power. Outside of, at least from people that are coming back, Baron Radcliffe.
Yeah, and I'm looking at. Let's see. I need to look at the outfield here. So, like you said, Baron Radcliffe is your power hitter. Michael Goldberg was like an ACC leading hitter in batting average for most of the season at the DH slot. Like, he's going to be another one of your professional hitters and raking the RBIs too.
A great stat. But no, saying all they have is Baron Radcliffe, and I facetiously added a second option to this, being like, who will take the Sunday song? Which, for those of you, if you've not been to a game at Russ Chandler Field, kind of the big captain, usually the power hitter of the team on Sunday, gets a different walk-up song, old 90s, I believe it's like a Christian contemporary song, where people clap above their heads, kind of thing. And it's like the sign of the big
it's
hefty.
Like the chop. It's like the chop, except without negative connotations.
Yeah. But yeah, like, again, to answer my own question there, I think Baron Radcliffe is that guy. And the point I'm trying to make is he's not a bad replacement for that power at the plate either. Like, if you're going to have a guy that's going to hit a lot of home runs, it might be the guy with one of the best exit velocities in the game, very high ratio of home runs to at bats. What was it, 5.2 or something like that?
I'd have to pull it back up, and I don't have it in front of me.
I don't know what the ratio was, but it's also 12 a.m. So I don't know where I'm going to find it because I'm getting tired. But, Baron Radcliffe is a good guy to do it. So I don't think we'll lose all the power either because we got enough coming back on that front.
I do also want to add, you have dual sport athlete Nate McCollum, who came in for football, also playing baseball. And from what our guys watching tape said, McCollum is very, very speedy. You could probably see him used as a pinch runner for Radcliffe in late game situations, or one of the other maybe not as fast guys on the base paths when you really need a runner in scoring position.
Yeah, I'd second that. I haven't watched McCollum's tape, but he was also rated in. Also, isn't he a class of 2020 guy?
Yeah, well, I forgot about that. Shut up.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Let me look at that. I don't know if he early enrolled or not. I'm not the.
Anyway, I think the point we're trying to make here is, once again, it depends. It is what it is. They're going to have to play the games.
Yeah, he's a 2020 signee. I don't think he enrolled early, so I don't think he'll be on the flats. But if they're in a situation, they do have speed on the roster too. So it's not going to be McCollum this year, but it definitely will be next year. So I wouldn't discount what you said just because of whoever that's going to be.
As a parting shot on this, just so we can move on because it is midnight on the East Coast. I felt like Tech was more aggressive last season on the base paths, and maybe it's just a overall baseball thing to be more aggressive on the base paths now. But at least from Tech, I definitely saw it in person every game, and I think you can see that. You can obviously see that in stealing numbers, like I said, from Jackson Webb and Luke Waddell. I think you're going to see that was sort of the 1.0 version. This year, you're going to see the 2.0. Now that you have proven commodities that can get on base, like I said, you're going to send them more often. If you know that they can beat out tags, you're going to be more, or Ramsey, Coach Ramsey is going to be more incentivized to send them over to second or maybe over to third if he thinks they can get there.
Yeah.
The data is now there.
Ramsey. Yeah. I like that, Ramsey. But yeah, no, definitely agree. What's our fourth question?
Speaking of data, that does lead us right into our fourth question, which I think brings all of our other topics together. What do you think is the ceiling for this team? Given the two parts at play, you have some experience. You have a couple of returning players, actually like a decent amount of returning players, but that are powered by analytics, this new approach to hitting, this new approach to pitching, and getting some improvement there just based on technique changes and analysis compared to youth prospects or freshmen that are coming in. You have these two parts to this team. Based on that, where does this team go? Where can they go?
Oh, I'm putting on the gold-colored glasses here, buddy.
Oh boy!
If everything lines up, Omaha.
If everything lines up,
yeah, you said the ceiling. That if everything lines up, this team can go to Omaha.
I really need to get better at wording my questions. I think. I mean, I'm with you. I think we said the same thing last year when looking at the rotation specifically, because I think we had talked about the rotation even last year. The consistency just wasn't there, and the bullpen last year, the bullpen during the course of the 2019 season, consistency wasn't there either. So I want to see how the improvement from all of the technology with Borrell and then the youth that are gonna be in the bullpen, their talent. I want to see how those two things meld and if they can shore up the bullpen. I think our hypothesis here for the season is we're not super worried about the hitting. I think that's going to take care of itself. We're worried about where that stability is going to come with the pitching. And I think the rotation will be fine. I think you mentioned that it's going to be something along the lines of Maxwell, Rodig, and Hughes. I think that's what that's what we were talking about and batting around. But who is going to step up in that bullpen? Who is going to bring it every time, that be the reliable first reliever out, reliable closer, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, and again, it's something that's gonna shake out as things go on. Again, you're getting 12:15 a.m. Jake now, but I see analytics maybe not playing so much of a role in This is totally probably a left turn from what you were.
This is an anti-narrative.
It's an anti-narrative transition, but I'll bring it back. I promise. I see analytics maybe not having the biggest day-to-day role in the freshman transitions, in what the pitching roster is going to shake out like. But I see them as building a base, right? And so if we're talking about what that ceiling is and what to expect, again, expectations and ceilings are two different things. So I'm going to blow up the question. I'm going to say that we want to just build a base. Not saying that getting to the NCAA tournament would be gravy or something like that. I expect them to do that. I expect them to contend in the Coastal. That Miami series at the end of the year, that's going to be big. And it's just a matter of how those arms come along in the meantime, of who that stopper is going to be. Because honestly, it's probably going to be Andy Archer. I don't know enough about, how Jake Sherrod or the rest of or Will Sherrod, Jake Brace, the rest of the pen has come along. It's going to be, there's still so many question marks until we see them on the field,
God, I love how all of these questions have ended in we need to see game tape in order to answer them.
There's no spring training in baseball. We saw them in October, and what's going to shake out between then and now is going to be question marks.
Well, I think we did get some good discussion in, so I'll take it. It's all about padding the podcast time.
No ad revenue. We just
absolutely no ad revenue. This is just so I can tar you out on a Tuesday night.
Ain't that the truth?
All right, I think that about wraps it up for us on baseball, and really on a very, very busy weekend on the flats last weekend, and then also an upcoming very busy slate for Georgia Tech in NCAA athletics. Mr. Grant, do you want to take us out with the schedule for this week?
Yes. Quick hitters. Men's basketball Wednesday. Women's basketball at Virginia Tech on Thursday. Swimming is at home 10 and 5 p.m. Friday and Saturday. Track will be in 3 different road invitationals. That's whack. But it's the thing. If you're looking to get in your sports fix, this weekend will be not just seeing swimming, but you got women's tennis at home on Friday, which is your appetizer before baseball and softball happen at the exact same time at 4 p.m. Baseball opens their season versus St. Peter's. Softball hosts Nebraska. Saturday swimming, same schedule, and track, same schedule. Softball is at 12:30 and 6, bookending a baseball 2 p.m. game versus Cincinnati. That's probably their best opponent of the weekend before we roll on into Sunday for baseball and softball to close out with 12:30 softball hosting Iowa, baseball at 1 against St. John's, and then women's tennis, women's basketball, and men's golf in Puerto Rico, Raleigh, and Evanston. So that is all over the place. So, yeah, a lot of sports, a lot of traveling, but also a lot here on the flats to look forward to. And we will be able to bring that all to you next week.
I got to say, someone is really racking up the frequent flyer miles, booking all this travel.
Lucky women's tennis. They get to go to beautiful Chicago 2 weekends in a row. What a dream.
Okay. Pump your brakes there, buddy. This is how I know you're getting delirious. So let's let's call it here. We will be back in your podcatchers on Wednesday, and we will see you all after another great weekend of Georgia Tech sports.